dear friend Fray Hans, and I returned only a very few days ago from a peaceful spiritual retreat for priests and nuns.
That Dom Dominique, the presiding bishop of the Diocese of Concepción do Araguaia, located in the southern region of Pará, personally asked our team to organize and facilitate for the community. We had inaugurated this farm there in the city of Redenção in Pará, practically the 6th Fazenda da Esperança in that state. And then, at the very end, Dom Dominique approached Fray Hans to ask him if it might be possible for us to lead this upcoming retreat together. For us, it presents a significant challenge because we have become accustomed to communicating and engaging with our young people regularly. Now, preaching to priests and sisters, it's something that gives you a stomachache, as they say, right? A bellyache. Because it's a big responsibility. And for the 4th time now, we've accepted an invitation like this out of love for the bishop who welcomed the farm. And just as it happened with you in each of your farms, right? Most of them are bishops who took on this responsibility. Like over there in Piraju, they're almost a bishop, Father Zanella and the whole group anyway. We don't open a Fazenda community if we don't have the bishop's blessing, whether directly or at least in an indirect way. This is because we firmly believe that at the heart of it all, the local bishop and who serves within the diocese as the primary representative of the one who transmits the Holy Faith and all of the sacred mysteries that it contains, most especially including the divine and real presence of Jesus Christ in the Holy Eucharist. Consequently, the Fazenda cannot be established. It truly cannot happen if we do not have the firm and absolute guarantee that our young people will always have that sacred and life-giving presence available to them of the Eucharist. I'm talking about one aspect because the priest and you sisters bring many others. But now we want to focus on this, because the history of the Fazenda is very much connected to this silent presence that transforms, and that is rationally difficult to understand. And it's even harder to explain, especially now to priests and sisters. So I count on your mercy and understanding in advance so that we can move forward together with love and with the great sacrifice you are making, because some of you are truly making a significant sacrifice due to your deep tiredness. But you are still believing in this profound love that Fray Hans is now sharing with us all. Explained so well in the first part, I feel that the Holy Spirit will help us. I would like to take a moment to walk through a few significant historical facts and milestones from our shared past with you today. And then you might also find yourself identifying with these experiences on a personal level, because it is highly improbable that even a single person among us here in this room hasn't had a very deep and personal moment of encounter with Him. In the Eucharist, broadly speaking, these moments tended to occur in specific situations involving critical decision-making. With us, it was no different. And that is precisely the reason why, when the bishop from Redenção reached out and invited us to give, to do, and to preach this retreat, we decided to speak extensively about this important topic. When it comes to priests and sisters, it is about becoming more aware of the transformative power that this presence has been bringing about since Jesus instituted it. But now, especially in our communities, each person can recall in the history of their own community those moments when the presence of Jesus in the Eucharist was decisive, whether for the founder, the founderess, or for all the sons and daughters who followed them. And when it was decided to talk about this topic, I thought that Frey would do it, but Frey insisted that as a layperson, I should be the one to do it. And that's exactly why I thought of bringing up a few specific elements and certain significant events that have recently happened. And these confirm why we are gathered here, because of this Eucharistic presence that has drawn us in, that has fascinated us. And I also share these stories out of love for the younger brothers, not just in the sense of age, but for those who are accompanying our young people, our communities. Now, for you priests who are here, I really don't know exactly what kind of initial impression you had when you first arrived at this community and were finally able to celebrate together. Tell me, how did you truly feel in that moment? The participation of the boys, the participation of the girls, the interest they show. And we've noticed this from the very beginning. That is, it seems to happen with both the boys and the girls. Immediately after they have undergone that profound experience of a deeply personal encounter with God and a truly personal encounter with Jesus Christ, it is very much like a newborn baby who depends entirely and completely upon its mother's breast in order to be nourished by her milk. They almost instinctively and naturally seek out what the Church offers to all of us, as if the Church herself were a loving mother with a breast, the gift of the Holy Eucharist. Our boys and girls, even if they come from another religious experience or another denomination, do not show any difficulty. In fact, we are the ones who have difficulties because of our rationalism. We tend to think that evangelicals or those who don't believe in God would have difficulty with the Eucharistic celebration or moments of adoration, which has been going on for about 3 or 4 years. We started doing it on the farms every Saturday for 2 hours. It's common for many of our young people to say, I look forward to the moment of adoration on Saturdays. Are you nodding your heads? Are you confirming this? I mean, it's not an experience we see only here. Especially when it is carried out with fervor. With the grace of a priest, of a sister, they are deeply moved and even have experiences of inner liberation and even discover their own vocation. So, with us, in the very beginning, as some of you may already know the story, there were those profound encounters I was truly blessed to have with the first group of young people on the street corner who used drugs near the parish, where the friar was serving as the local parish priest. It was a time of great significance for all of us involved in that community. And after about a month of meeting with them, it happened that at Mass the gospel was, ask and you shall receive, knock and it will be opened to you. Whoever seeks finds. And it was right after the Eucharist that, with the heart of a child, I turned to him who was within me, but whom I could also see in others. And I said to Jesus, couldn't you give one of those young people from that place where they gathered to do drugs, not for me, but for you? Then I was amazed. It was one of my first truly powerful experiences with the power of the Eucharist. A week later, one of those young people I used to meet with, who many of you know, Antonio, asked to talk to me privately. And in that conversation, he revealed to me his desire to change his life and not make his mother suffer anymore. And at the end, he told me, I need someone to be with me 24 hours a day. And then it came to my mind, you, take me wherever you want. I want to get out of this. When he made that request, besides remembering the promise I had made, it immediately became clear in my mind that I couldn't be the person to accompany him 24 hours a day, but I knew who I could accompany him to. So I invited him to come the next day at 7 o'clock in front of the parish because I wanted him to attend Mass. During the 2 months of meetings we had on the street, I had never talked to them about anything, whether it was about the gospel or the reason why I was going there. The moment he made the request, I felt I should reveal who had brought me to them, who had led me to them. That's why I invited him to come participate in the Eucharist. And he came the next day, participated, didn't understand almost anything. But our meeting point became every day with the friar at Mass, at the Eucharist, because I worked and couldn't accompany him. I wanted him to be able to have that encounter, the one we had all experienced once. He was also one of the few in the group who worked, so we stopped hanging out at that corner to meet every day at the Eucharist. And in listening to the word, right after he prepared himself and received communion, that's when Antonio's transformation happened. To the point that, as many of you know from the story, he experienced an inner liberation and at the same time a joy, especially when he realized, when receiving communion, that phrase from the gospel, when you are about to offer your gift and there remember that your brother has something against you, he took that phrase so seriously that sometimes while attending Mass, he would not receive communion. And I asked him what happened. Antonio, he said, yesterday I slapped my little brother because there was no coffee and I got really angry. And I feel in a position to, he has a very strong temperament, doesn't he? And I felt like how radically he took this matter of receiving the Eucharist seriously. So, as you already know, he brought along several of his other close friends, and later on there were 5 of them in total who faithfully attended Mass every single day. So, when he eventually said, "Take me wherever you want, I need someone to accompany me 24 hours a day," the place and the person who started accompanying them was not us, because from a physical standpoint, it wasn't even possible. It was in that Eucharistic encounter. And I mean, today we have a clearer understanding of why it's important that when a farm is opened, we ensure the bishop's blessing, because with the bishop, all the other priests, or those whom the bishop designates, will be able to provide this accompaniment. Because we know that this transformation, if they have this personal encounter with Christ, will happen, even if they don't understand much. It's not necessary. This is what we've experienced over these years, for someone to rationally understand what happens at the moment the host is elevated or even during adoration. It's important that this happens. And in the effort of what at first the friar explained well to us, we strive to care for one another, to love each other, to ensure the presence of Christ among us. The nourishment he wants to give to all those who love each other, who wish each other well, is what gives us strength to keep forgiving each other, to talk, to eliminate judgments, strength to confess, and so on. But we realized over time that the Eucharist not only guaranteed our gathering together and called others as well. Because just imagine, there were 5 young people who, coming from that destroyed life, gathered in this place, which was Eucharistic. There was no farm yet, no house, just that place, the Mass. Afterwards, we would go do other activities. As soon as Fray Hans acquired the first property, the very first thing that was done when it was inaugurated, if you remember, the first house was the chapel. And that's how it happens at every inauguration, at every farm. The concern is always to ensure that there is that Eucharistic place. This continued even during the moments of the first failures, the first disappointments. After 7 months since I had left my parents, I was living with them in the first house of Fazenda da Esperança, which was a rented house near the parish. Frei was still building that big house over at Santa Edi Verge, which you will visit the day after tomorrow. And it happened that Antonio, the first one, had a relapse. A series of circumstances. And since he was a leader, he dragged the others along with him. Then, as the effect took hold, one after another, they began to fall. And the house was practically empty. It was a very difficult experience. Yesterday, I met my sister, Anna, who has already started to experiment a little. That, because the farm is new there. No farm is different. This happens. Some management teams, when the farm starts at the inauguration, there are 1,000 people, that big celebration, the first young people start, and soon after everyone leaves. Back in Argentina once, during that profound life experience, there what we were trying to do was incredibly difficult. So it truly seems that God allows these failures, these difficult relapses to happen, so that my love and our collective love is tested and strengthened, remains unconditional, and that I am not attached to the results but to what attracted us, this love for God. But that first experience was necessary. The house was practically empty. I arrived at Mass. At that time we still attended at that house. It was practically 500 meters from the parish. We attended Mass, and after Mass I went to the sacristy. And the friar asked how things were going. I told him almost everyone had left. And the friar asked, "Did God leave?" Then there was this silence, and I didn't say anything, nor did the friar. And the overall distinct impression that I've gathered is that God, through that question, gave the answer in our hearts. "No, I did not leave. I am within you, who have just nourished yourself with me. So don't worry, I am the reason for your life." It's not the recovery of the young people. It's not the results. It was hard to understand that. It cost a lot because you give up everything, leave your parents, put in your money, put in everything, all that enthusiasm. I had the impression that it was all a play. Sometimes I would ask myself, but the 7 months we lived together, when they changed, brought joy to their parents, then everything ended in such a tragic way, because unfortunately that's what happens. When they relapse, they do things even worse than before. He took part in a robbery and then had to flee the city anyway. But we truly lived through and experienced that. The specific reason that gave such deep meaning to the birth of the farm and to the profound personal transformation of Antonio, as well as to the transformation of the very first ones who joined us, was also the exact same reason for the eventual failure, the heavy disappointment, and the reason why God was going to ask me, and indeed asked of all of us, to take a courageous and necessary step forward so that the work that was being born in that specific period could continue. It should not rely on what I want. We all want, just imagine you as priests, sisters, you want the boys to stay, to complete their year, to receive their diploma, and then to do well out there, not to relapse. Of course, we want that. The world wants that. Families, when they place their trust in us and hand over their daughters, their sons into our care, of course, they want to put an end to that terrible suffering that most of us don't even know what it means. Maybe only a few here have experienced it in their own families. What dependency really means. I have lived it. It is horrible. I wouldn't wish that suffering on anyone. Having a family member who is an alcoholic or a drug addict is terrible. It's a feeling that sometimes I tell the boys, you who are recovering, you don't know what your father went through. You don't know what your mother went through, because they suffered the anguish of seeing their child close to death. You didn't. You still had the pleasure of the drug, and only later did you start to lose everything. But they don't know that. So the parents, society, the church, who made every effort to build the home, who put in all the work to create that structure, expect that the results will come from that context. So we understand that the Eucharist as Jesus among us as the Word, but now let's focus our gaze on this mystery. Extraordinary. It is the deepest meaning. It is the great hope, as Pope Benedict says, that should be present for anyone working in this kind of mission. For those who are involved, work might even be a very diminutive word. It's not really work. For those who are called to this vocation, who are called to, in communion with other brothers and sisters, carry forward a mission like this. Without this foundation, it becomes difficult. You get disappointed, and then when you get disappointed with the boys and girls, you can also become disappointed with other priests, other sisters, when you come face to face with the character flaws that we all have among us. And then it becomes difficult to carry a mission forward. I am certain, as happens in your communities, in congregations, in dioceses, the understanding and the choice that I want to make. And all of us together can make Jesus and the Eucharist set us free from what I can expect from you and what you can expect from me, from what we in our fragility are capable of giving. It's difficult. So that is why God allowed us to experience this right from the beginning. This failure allowed us to truly rely on the presence of Jesus in the Eucharist, in all these points and in other points as well. That is why the gathering we are having here, which we have been doing for years now, is actually a way of giving thanks to you. I've already learned your name, right, Father? To Father Lorenzo, to Father Josue, to each of the priests here, to the sisters, for the grace that you are giving the sisters in the Eucharistic celebrations, in the celebrations of the Word. In the act of giving the Eucharist, we thank you who answered the call and are making it possible, giving the boys and girls the chance to have this encounter. Deep down, that is the intention. Then there is everything else that Fry has already explained, that we, over these days, also with your communion, with the experiences that each one can share. After each impulse that we give, we can give. We have also discovered other things with this Eucharist, this choice that we want to make, this clarity, this identity that we want to have on the farms, not only here in Brazil, which is a country that, thank God, is still deeply Catholic, Christian, but in other places where we are going, it is not like that. And where there is resistance, there are communities that welcome young drug addicts that have religious leadership. We do not want to give up this identity, because look at what is happening. I place this also in your hearts. In countries like, for example, in Europe, the friar just mentioned Germany, Switzerland, we have difficulties having the same number of young people as we have on the farms, like in Argentina, here in Brazil, or in other countries where secularism is not dominant. There it takes longer for young people to arrive, because when they come into contact, or when the authorities in charge, the social sectors responsible for this problem of drug addiction in these countries, when they find out that Fazenda da Esperança offers in its recovery process a religious support, there is resistance, and because of that they create obstacles, even preventing young people from going to participate. On the other hand, what is happening is that we are, whether in Germany or in Switzerland, receiving as donations convents that are empty. And we are noticing that these convents, which were practically closed, have come back to life with the Eucharistic presence, with the few young people who are there. Just yesterday we received an email from a large convent in the northern region of Germany that was donated to us. And the city has started to come alive again with the presence of the few volunteers and former residents who have recovered, because Mass has returned to that place. And in other places as well. So, the farm is not only providing an answer to the problem of young people who are destroying themselves with drugs, which are very strong there, but it is also bringing back, making this spiritual nourishment return to the local city population. And so many other experiences. There are young people who, as you are noticing later in your own experiences, you can comment on a large number of these individuals take on the significant responsibility of managing a brand new farm after completing only 1 year of their recovery period. We are risking giving them this responsibility because we want to believe that with this 1 year of recovery, receiving the nourishment of the Word and the Eucharist, they are enabled to take on the responsibility of a farm. And what truly assures us of this is the profound and sacred experience that we share with the Holy Eucharist. and the formation that you are providing together with us. In some places, not all the sisters and not all the priests understand this, because when we open a new farm, they want us to send consecrated people there. And we say, we've already sent someone, Father, it's you. No, you don't understand. You have to send people who are already prepared, formed by you. We already have, Father, it's you. Sometimes you have to explain this 3 times for them to understand that the one who made themselves available to leave father, mother, and be completely free to spend 24 hours with the young people was not you, Father, because the bishop doesn't release you, even if you want to. It wasn't you, sister, because your provincial doesn't release you, even if you want to. So who is going to stay with these young people? It's those whom you, sister or father, have formed. They make themselves available to spend 24 hours with these young people. So what can we do? With the little time that is allowed to us, you form them. And the protagonism is being given to them. In this formation that is received through the Eucharist and the Word and all the tools we have on the farm. So if for someone, for some priest here or some sister, it wasn't clear, today it becomes clear. You are the ones forming, the ones shaping the young people, the future missionaries and consecrated members of Fazenda da Esperanza. With those 2 hours or more, I don't know if there are any priests here who still play cards with the young people. There are some priests who later go and play. It's cards, right? And they stay with the young people, and the young people are happy, right? When in addition to the formation time and everything else, some sisters and some priests still spend time with them at other moments, whether for leisure or for... Anyway, because little by little they are discovering that the Eucharist they give is themselves. In a year of recovery, receiving nourishment from the Word and the Eucharist, they become able to take on the responsibility of a farm. And what guarantees this for us is the experience with the Eucharist and the formation that you are providing together with us. In some places, not all the sisters and not all the priests understand this, because when we open a new farm, they want us to send consecrated people there. And we say, we've already sent someone, Father, it's you. No, you don't understand. You have to send people who are already prepared, formed by you. We already have, Father, it's you. Sometimes you have to explain this 3 times for them to understand that the one who made themselves available to leave father, mother, and be completely free to spend 24 hours with the young people, it wasn't you, Father, because the bishop doesn't release you, even if you want to go. It wasn't you, sister, because your provincial doesn't release you, even if you want to go. So, who is going to stay with these young people? It's those whom you, sister, you, father, have formed. They make themselves available to spend 24 hours with these young people. So what can we do? With the little time that is allowed to us, you form them. And the protagonism is being given to them. In this formation that is received through the Eucharist and the Word and all the instruments we have on the farm. So if for someone, some priest, some sister, it wasn't clear today, it becomes clear. You are the formators, the ones who shape the young future missionaries and consecrated members of Fazenda da Esperanza. With those 2 hours or more, I don't know if there are any priests here who still play cards with the young people. There are some priests who later go play cards and spend time with the young people, and they are happy. Besides the moments of formation and everything, there are still some sisters, some priests. They spend time with them at other moments, which are for leisure or for... Anyway, because little by little they are discovering that the Eucharist He gives is Himself. And He becomes nourishment for the young people, even those who are able, even when playing soccer. There are some priests who go play soccer with the boys. With the girls, I don't know how it is. What games do you play with them? So, as we discover that we as people are Eucharistic nourishment for them, not just in those moments of formation, we want to be that Eucharistic presence at other times whenever possible. When you The grace that we have had over these years, since the very first experience, when the first congregation of the Sisters of Sisem gave us the opportunity to create communities within the farm, allowed that Eucharist, which is there in the tabernacle and is distributed at Mass, could be carried through your presence, sisters, and today through the more than 11 congregations that have houses within the farm. As is the case with Sister Rosimere, who, ever since the farm was opened there, you have never abandoned it, despite the temptation you faced. Because many times the provincial would send us an email or say, we are thinking, we have few vocations. I don't know if we will continue at the farm next year. So like you, like many sisters, we are having this Eucharistic presence in your person, in the way you live together 24 hours a day. And some priests who are having experiences within the farm are becoming this Eucharistic presence. I really don't want to tire you out at all. And I want to conclude with one more experience and a passage that I would like to read to you, something very profound, which in recent times has helped us a lot. Especially now, with the work growing and responsibilities increasing, we feel, as Frey just told us, a demand that as our fragility becomes more apparent, we need Him to help us depend more on Him than on our own abilities. Because it is impossible now to keep up with a work that has 102 farms already in several countries and all the difficulties that arise. It is more than clear that we must, I first of all, Frey, Lucia and Irasi, and you, together with us, ask for the grace that we may convert our hearts, that it is He who must act, and He Himself present in the Holy Eucharist, who is omnipresent everywhere, not only permits that when they leave, they can meet again and return to Him. To tell if a relapse happens once. I forgot to tell you because maybe the question was left in your minds. That first one you said relapsed and left, and the others left too. What happened to him? After 2 years, he was already on the run from the city because, as I told you, he had committed a serious crime. He ran away in hiding and returned to Guaratinguetá to visit his mother. And when he passed in front of the church, he stopped and remembered the 7 months we had lived together. A movie played in his mind. Alone, he went in, took a deep breath, entered the church, knelt before Jesus in the Eucharist and said to Him, I want to start over. Will you give me strength? I'm not going to run away and I'm going to stay in the city. And so he left and went to his mother's house. And on that day, he started over. He didn't go back to the farm, and later he looked for Fray Hans, who was still serving as the parish priest. And today it's already been 28 years. He's married and takes care of one of our departments here. So, just as it happened with him, it happened with thousands of other young people who, in suffering and hardship, after returning home, found their families broken or in worse shape than when they left. Because that's how it is. Many, having had a profound experience of encountering Christ in the Eucharist, when they return to the world, know that the world, as we sing, is not cold. It's not bad, because he discovered at the Fazenda this wonderful tool that allows him to seek out his parish priest there. He didn't know it existed. Today, Father Lorenzo shared his experience of bringing all the young people to celebrate Easter at the parish. Isn't that right, Father? That's how I understood it. So I'm sure that the 25 from Piraju, for the first time in their lives, had a parish Eucharistic experience. They never had. This experience was the initial experience of the Fazenda. We used to participate in the parish. How many of you, certainly, I don't know how things are there, right? Father Zanella must have already brought everyone from the Fazenda to attend Mass at the parish. How impressed the parish is to see that group of men or a group of girls participating in the active life of the church. And because of that, I won't be alone when I go back home. And at the end of the journey, they lose their fear. Or they return with fear, but they know that this fear can be overcome when they come back and look for a place where they can be nourished and prevent relapse. And so this specific page that I really wanted to read to you today is a very special page that Chiara Lubich wrote back in 1976. I truly wanted to do everything possible to share this. Everything I've just said so far is really just meant to be a brief introduction to the topic. You can even forget everything I've said up to now, right? I wanted to provide this thorough introduction so that we could reach this understanding that, as you are already observing on the farms, we have received from this spirituality that gave birth to this work. The spirituality of St. Francis, drawing upon the full spiritual strength of its unique charism, which for over 800 years has brought forth a great multitude of holy saints, and the deep spirituality of the Focolare movement. These were the two profound and distinct charisms that gave us the vision, the strength, the help, so that we can be who we are. We always believe that when we return to our origins, to the inspirations that moved these founders like St. Francis and Chiara Lubich, we feel that the nourishment, that cake we prepare, the ingredients of this cake that we make and give to our young people, it becomes even more flavorful when we always return to our origins. That's why you'll always see us talking about these two people, St. Francis and Chiara. And when she wrote, she used very strong expressions. And when she wanted to convey the understanding she had about what the Eucharist is, about the role, the task of the Eucharist in our lives, she made us understand how we truly are not alone. And that most of the things that are difficult for me to do, whether it's about personal challenges, my own, or our difficulties in relationships, or the helplessness we often feel regarding the boys, the girls, the problems we will always face, He is there for that. Within His quiet, divine, and deeply loving presence, He transforms us, and transforms us in such a way that when I read here now, sometimes it even shocks me the way she puts it. But that's what happens. It's the great gift we receive from Christ with this invention He made to remain among us through the Eucharist. So she gave it the title, The Page. The Eucharist does not simply produce only the good and beautiful fruits of profound holiness and selfless love, nor is its main purpose to increase unity with God and among us as unity is usually understood. And for this reason, it serves to nourish the presence of Jesus among us. Yes, that too. But the role of the Eucharist is something else. The purpose of the Eucharist is to transform us into the divine likeness of God by participation. By mixing the flesh, made alive by the Holy Spirit and life-giving from Christ, with ours, it divinizes us in both soul and body. Therefore, it makes us God. At this very moment, the divine can only truly exist within the essence of the divine itself. This is why the Eucharist causes the person who has worthily partaken of it to enter into the bosom of the Father, placing the person within the Trinity in Jesus. At the same time, the Eucharist does not do this with just one person, but with many, who, all being in God, are no longer many individuals, but are truly one. They are the divine creator and all together in the divine. They are completely unified with His essence, eternally immersed within His presence. Now, this reality that the Eucharist brings about is the church. What is the church? It is the profound sense of unity brought about by the deep and mutual affection of two individuals, mutual among Christians and through the Eucharist. The Holy Church of God is formed by men who have been divinized through grace. Having been made like unto God, they are united to Christ, who is God, and are joined eternally to one another. If we truly desire to understand this concept, viewing it through a human perspective, that is to say, expressed in human terminology, and following the profound illustration provided within the Holy Scriptures, we see that the church is a body whose supreme head is the glorious Christ. But just as Christ is in the bosom of the Trinity, so too the Holy Church is called to dwell within the eternal bosom of the Father. And it truly already exists here on this earth within the faithful members in whom the mystery of the Eucharist is active. And if in part it is not yet, it is on the way there. Furthermore, it is important to note that man brings the entirety of all creation along with him, for he is its ultimate and complete synthesis. Everything that came from God returns, therefore, to the Trinity through the Eucharist.